Okay, in this segment we're going to talk about more features of the competent newborn. The baby is born with some skill sets. We talked about reflexes. Babies are also born with social capabilities. It's clear that they are designed to be members of the human species and not raised by wolves or something like that. They show a preference for humans. Like I said in the last segment, through habituation studies, we know that they have a preference for faces. We also know that they have a preference for voices over any other kind of auditory stimulus. A lot of people talk about babies preferring to hear heartbeats because that's what they've heard in the womb. Yeah, they like a heartbeat. But you know what? They would enjoy just as much hearing the sound of a gurgling stomach because they heard that for 9 months in the womb. Truly, the most soothing thing for a baby is a slightly muffled, kind of monotone human voice. Not a lot of excitement. If you raise your voice too much, like in pitch, it attracts their attention. If you're trying to soothe them, then you want a nice monotone, kind of muffled voice. That's the thing that babies prefer the most. I used to play the NPR station for my son when he was taking a nap to sort of mask the noise of what was going on in the rest of the house, and that little sort of muffled, monotone voice, oh, perfect. As I've mentioned before, babies prefer faces from the very beginning over any other object. When I was in college, the big thing back in the 1980s, the big thing was this idea that babies like high contrast things. And so supposedly they like to look at black and white bullseye diagrams more than anything else, or that they like geometric shapes like black and white checkerboards or triangles or something like that. That was all, it's true. Of other things besides faces, they do like those objects. They like high contrast stuff. Newborns don't have the world's greatest vision, so things that are high contrast are really good for them. But those studies had not included faces as an option. Babies will stare much longer at things that look like an approximation of a human face. So like this quintessential smiley face. Perfect. Babies love staring at that sort of thing. Now, among the humans, babies seem to very early on recognize parent versus non-parent, and they show a preference for their parents. Within 3 hours of birth, babies can reliably identify their moms by smell alone. Now, how do we know that? Remember the concept of habituation. So they put clothing that mom's been wearing on one side of the baby's head and clothing that somebody else has been wearing on the other side of the baby's head. And baby will reliably turn his head towards mom's clothing. So it implies that babies very quickly learn mom's smell. Now some of you might be thinking to yourself, well, no duh, baby spent 9 months inside a mom getting her smell. Oh, no, no, no. Baby's been swimming around in his own amniotic fluid inside of his own amniotic sac, all of which is made up of his own DNA. So baby's surrounded by baby, and in fact, not only is baby surrounded by baby, baby has these nasal plugs in his nose that prevent any exchange of fluid through his nose anyway. So he didn't learn mom's smell in the womb. He learned it at birth. Now, that doesn't really get rid of the concept that maybe babies are sort of like puppies, right? Because puppies also learn their moms by smell right away. Here's where it gets really weird and suggests that there might be something unique about birth and the exchange of information early on. Moms can recognize their newborns by smell much more quickly than they can recognize their newborns by face. They did a study where they took Polaroid photographs, which are not the world's greatest pictures in the world, but they took Polaroid photographs of all the babies in the nursery, and then they would put together what we call 6-packs of those pictures. So you'd see 6 Polaroids in one set, and in that 6 was mom's actual newborn baby, and she was supposed to, from the array of 6, pick her own baby's face. Moms needed to have spent at least 5 hours with their newborn before they could recognize their own baby at above chance levels. Now they did the same thing, but instead of pictures, they used newborns' t-shirts. They took 6 t-shirts off of 6 babies out of the nursery, one of which was the mom's baby, put them all into plastic bags, and she sniffed, opened each plastic bag and sniffed inside. After 1 hour of spending time with her own baby, moms were able to recognize their own baby's t-shirt. So it sort of suggests that smell becomes much more acute, much more meaningful for moms in those hours after giving birth than vision does. So moms rely on smell, babies rely on smell. Babies learn mom's smell within that first couple of hours, just like mom's learning baby's smell. Now this one, showing a preference for mom's voice, is one that we can trace back to experiences in the womb. You know, baby's been in there for 9 months now. His ears got wired up at about 3 months gestation, but the connection between the ears and the auditory cortex didn't occur until about the 7th month of gestation. So even so, 2 solid months of hearing mom talk and the auditory cortex being wired up to process that information, babies come out of the womb recognizing their mom's voice, reliably turning their heads towards their mom's voice, soothing better when they hear their mom's voice over anybody else's voice. Dads, by the way, can boost this effect by talking through mom's stomach, doing it reliably every single day, several times a day. You can get baby to recognize your voice as well. Okay. So one of the big things that happens in the last stage of pregnancy, and then for sure early from birth through childhood, is that your brain is developing, right? The thing is, there's been so much emphasis lately on the importance of early childhood education that it has sort of taken away our focus on the fact that our brain continues to develop our whole lives. This is actually a functional MRI of an adult who's learning a finger tapping task. You could say it's sort of like learning to play the piano, but they were just learning to tap their fingers in a certain pattern. On the top left, you see their motor cortex before they've learned the task. On the top right, you see their motor cortex after they've mastered the task. You see that new, at the bottom, they've zoomed in just to the changes in the brain, and you see that new little area that now is being invoked for completing the task. Our brains develop and grow our whole lives. It's not just during early childhood. A lot of times people are really concerned about preserving all the connections that are present at birth and up till 4 years of age, and that we're wasting opportunities if we let some of those connections die. But your brain is designed to be honed to represent your experience as well as it possibly can. It's not designed to, for your whole life, be ready and prepped to absorb any new experience. It's designed to adapt and become an expert on the things that you've experienced. And so to try and preserve synapses that form when you're really little into adulthood is probably counterproductive. A skilled brain is a brain that has honed itself. So what are we talking about? Okay, here we have a rat who's living in an impoverished environment. Here we have on the right rats who are living in an enriched environment, which is much more like normal rat life. In normal rat life, you have other rats around, you have to go hunt for your food, you have multiple water sources, you have things to climb on, right? If we look at the neuron of the impoverished rat, you see that it looks like a reasonably decent neuron. It's got dendrites going off one end, it's got its axon coming off the other end with its terminal fibers. It looks pretty decent. But if you look at the neuron of the enriched rat, you see way more dendrites, much more elaborate terminal fibers on the end of the one axon. Experience shapes the connections that we make between our neurons. And so what we worry about with early childhood education and things that happen in early, in the toddler years and stuff like that, is that if we don't provide stimulation, you can end up with a brain that looks like the impoverished rat's brain. With a normal, and I really want to emphasize that those rats in the enriched environment are not truly enriched. They're having experiences that normal rats out in the wild would have, much more similar. They don't have predators coming to get them, but they have, they have to search for their food, they have things to climb on, they have other rats to interact with. That's normal for a rat, and you end up with the enriched rat brain cell. That's the thing that we need to focus on for children's brain development, is that doing what most parents normally do, read to their children, take their children out of the house, show them new things, talk to them, talk with them even before the baby can speak. Most normal parents have like pseudo conversations with their babies where they ask the baby questions and leave them a blank where the baby would have answered. That kind of normal parenting leads to the normal kind of development that you would see on the right. Impoverished is where the baby's not getting adequate nutrition, is being ignored, is lacking in just normal levels of stimulation. A lot of times us overachieving Americans, we see enriched and we're like, okay, so flashcards from birth and all sorts of interactions all the time. And that's not really necessary in order to ensure healthy brain development. All right, let's go ahead and take a break here. We'll come back and start with motor development in the next segment.